Good morning, everybody. This is the Shield Wall, and we are excited to have Nikole on again, who is a licensed therapist who primarily deals with veterans and first responders. And today we were going to talk about alpha males and toxic masculinity and just had some questions that kind of went along with those subjects.
Awesome.
So I guess I'll get it started. My first one was like what is the definition of an alpha male?
I mean, it kind of depends. Like, if we're going by what society wants to tell people these days, I think it's vastly different than what kind of like nature tells us that it is. Um, so I have just for a little bit extra background. I also have a master's in animal behavior and conservation, in addition
Oh,
to a
that's
master's in
cool.
social work. Um, so I find like diving into the animal side of things is like just like a lot of fun for me. I can get really distracted by it. Um, but so like looking at nature, there's okay, so it's hard because different species obviously have like different social structures, right?
Hmm.
So um, we do have some good examples in some primate species. And so okay, so generally speaking, first and foremost, an alpha is responsible for the success and safety of their people. So if
Right.
we're talking about like a gorilla or whatever, it's a troop of gorillas, right? They need to be big and powerful enough to hold their own in a fight, but they also don't go looking for fights. But they're often at the center of aggression and violence because other males, want to come and challenge or intruders. They're kind of like stuff like shit finds them, right?
Right.
Um, they also have to communicate effectively with their troop, kind of maintains order, confirms his authority, and they are actually also generally involved with their young. Um, so I think, looking at like what that means for humans, um, I don't think we're like all that much different, although we live in a world where our situations change all the time, right? Like gorillas are just in their troop in the jungle, wherever they live in the mountains, and they go from like place to place with food, but their troop is always the same. And that's kind of like always the same, right? Us, we have home, we have work, we have friends from different areas of life that could be completely separate friend groups. So there's a lot of different places where the alphaness could be, I don't know, like I guess like more prominent or less prominent,
Yeah,
perhaps.
that makes sense.
Um, and if we look at nature, it's a little bit more about access to mates. The alpha always gets primary choice of mates. Some primate species have a social structure where like the alpha is cool with like some of the beta males like mating because he's like can't get around to everybody.
You can have my
Um,
sloppies. It's cool.
yeah, basically. Um, and so it's not like as much of like a challenge type of thing, but still like the alpha will have the first pick essentially.
Yeah.
Um, some primate species are like there's no alpha males, but they're like monogamous, and so like we can't really say like like being alpha means just to like go and
Get all the women.
spread right like spread your DNA everywhere. Because some of them are a little bit more like I guess like restricted. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess like to not like talk for 90 minutes about this thing, which I probably can honestly if given free reign. I think that like a human alpha male would be somebody who's physically capable, psychologically flexible, decisive, a natural leader, empathetic and tuned in to his people, an effective communicator, and confident. Um, so in again looking at humans in relationships, he would exemplify these traits and be monogamous, understanding that like in the world that we live in, right, like your children are far more likely to thrive and continue, your progeny, your traits, whatever, if you put all of your resources into your children, no matter how many
Right.
children you have, right? if they're in like your household and you're dumping resources into that versus like spreading them out everywhere. And now, I mean, gorillas and stuff don't have child support to worry about and all of that
Well, it
stuff.
could be measured by bananas with gorillas, I don't know.
It could be. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I haven't spent
Coconuts.
that much time with gorillas in the wild. I don't know if they have like horse sports or anything like that. So,
Court system.
And like that's not to say that like alpha males don't have their own struggles or limitations. Even looking at nature, we see that alpha males in nature have higher stress like hormones. Like their cortisol levels are way higher because the responsibility of the success of however many animals that they're responsible for falls on them, right? So like we're always going to have struggles and limitations, but despite those, that human alpha male is still capable and respected by the people that they lead. So like what comes to mind for me is like heroes from comic books or comic book based movies, because I don't really read a lot of comic books, but I like movies. It's like Professor X, right? Like he's in a wheelchair, but he still would be like, I mean, he's like the leader of the X-Men. Like you can't really get a whole lot more alpha than that. Wolverine, like he's got his own stuff he's going through, like Beast, Cyclops, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, like they all have their own shit that they're dealing with, but they're also the guys that you want on your side when things get rough. So I'm going to stop.
Yeah, that's a good definition. And I would say that kind of is very similar as far as like what you said about gorillas and the animals. Because my, I guess, personal definition of an alpha male would be a man who has the capabilities of protecting his family, the will to do so, and then anyone close to him that is considered weaker, whether it's elderly, infants, children, stuff like that, maybe women or smaller men that need help. And that's kind of my definition. It's just you're big enough or strong enough to take care of them, willing to take care of them, and like you said, sympathetic to their needs.
Yeah. And I think that's a little bit of what society today isn't really super happy about, is that willingness. Because a lot of people now, it seems like, think that if you're willing, then you are always like dangerous, or like that you're looking for trouble or something like that. And it's like, well, it's not really true. Like if it comes to you and you have to do something, personally, I'd far rather be near somebody who is capable and willing to do something, because then like, what happens then?
Well, you see a lot of people nowadays too have the opposite take. They think like, oh, you think I need your protection, or you think because we're women or children that we need a big strong man around. It feels like a lot of people take it personal instead of maybe they don't want to admit that they need help.
Look, I think Joe Rogan probably says it better than anyone. And so I'm going to kind of quote him. One of his stand-ups, he's like, listen, I love my wife. He's like, I love my two daughters. They're my most favorite people in the world. And they can beat me in a lot of stuff. But tell you what, if it comes to a fight, I'm beating the fuck out of all three of them. And he's like, I'm not trying to be offensive. It's just, that's kind of the thing is, and there's of course, there's silver linings. There's some jacked females out there probably kick my butt. But for the most part, there are the males that they were built, they were bred. It's kind of biology. Some of it is, this is biology. My biological function is supposed to be this. And we see that, like you were just saying, in all the other animals, mammals in the land. But it seems like it's drifting away in society now a little bit, or maybe it's not as acceptable to be alpha now.
Well, and we're talking using your strengths to protect. There are a lot of men who have a twisted view of reality where they think being aggressive to anyone at any time is alpha, which is
Absolutely
not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that if you defend the weak, you protect yourself, you protect others, you don't go looking for trouble, you don't go beating up anybody just because you can. And a matter of fact, it's stepping in when you might get your ass kicked is a big part of being alpha, knowing that, yeah, taking the brunt of it so someone else doesn't. It's not so much just pushing people around.
Well, I'll be real. Like, there is definitely like weirdness within males. I feel like males think certain things define them to be a male. Okay, I'll give you an example. I'm like, this guy, he's got a big truck and a pit bull driving down the road. And then he sees me with my 2 little dogs. He's like, "Why you got them bitch dogs, dude?" And I'm like, "Dude, a dog doesn't define me as a man. Being a man makes me a man. Any bitch can drive a truck and have a pit bull. Doesn't make you a man." See? Like, it's just, there are those people. They are like chip on their shoulder. Look at you staring at me over there, and it's just, and that is you're not an alpha, dude. You're trying to prove yourself. You know what they say with guys with lifts on their trucks,
I mean, I was just kind of going to say that it comes from a deeper level of like insecurity. Like, I mean, everybody has their own insecurities, right? Like, there's always going to be something that like you might be a little bit more self-conscious about, or that you might feel like you have to prove yourself a little bit more with. But those types of men who are like do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do? Kind of guys, like, bro, if you have to ask, you probably aren't anybody that needs to be reckoned with. So if you have to run around saying like I'm alpha, like you're probably not. The gorilla, the alpha
100%.
gorilla is not sitting there like roaring and beating his chest all the time, making sure that everybody knows that he's alpha. Like it's like a respect thing. People defer to the alpha gorilla or alpha primate, whatever species you're looking at, because I guess not people, right? They're other primates, because it's based on trust. If you're a jackass, like throwing around your muscles or your weight or your truck or your big dog, you're just an asshole, and that doesn't garner respect, and it's not going to garner trust at all.
So just to sum up, being an asshole doesn't make you an alpha. Let's just put that out there.
Exactly.
That's
So,
another definition.
so now that we have a good definition of like an alpha male, or at least a decent understanding, what would be the definition of toxic masculinity?
I mean, basically, those guys who think they're alpha, for sure.
That's
Like coming through. Actually, I wrote some notes on my other screen, so I'm just like scrolling down a little bit.
no worries.
Where is it even? I don't even know. But it's like we hear the word misogyny thrown out all the time lately, also. But I think like the actual dictionary definition of misogynist is hatred, dislike, or mistrust of women manifested in various forms such as physical intimidation and abuse, sexual harassment and rape, social shunning and I can't say that, and ostracism, etc. So it goes from like pretty severe stuff, obviously, to like kind of like just things like shutting women out of things, like not really having a whole lot of respect for them, having to throw around your physical like stature because like I'm gonna get in your face and be physically imposing, and like I'm gonna like make you listen to me. And that's not only in regards to women. I think that's in regards to anybody around them. Yeah, I mean, it's just
I think the misconception lately is that you can be masculine and not toxic. I think there's a lot of people that think if you are masculine, or you do like to lift weights and maybe drive a big jacked up truck, but you're not an asshole, or whatever the case is, that you're probably toxic. And
Yeah.
I think there needs to be an even side, because it makes a lot of dudes nowadays don't want to go to the gym. A lot of guys nowadays are uh, just kind of shying away from being a big, manly, strong man because they think it's toxic, and that's not what women want to see in a man.
Well, it's because our testosterone levels are low. I mean, any person can go on Google, look up the testosterone levels in males are at all-time lows right now. There's tons of studies that show that.
I didn't know that.
And yeah, it's out there. I can probably find an article if you want, or some peer-reviewed studies, but I mean, we can look it up too if you want to, but it is, our testosterone levels are low. And I think that's an issue with it. And something like going to the gym is something that increases your testosterone levels. So, it's people should encourage to do masculine, quote unquote, activities, but you don't have to be toxic about it. And I think that's there's this weird conundrum. Like, you can be masculine without being toxic. That's what kind of what Jones was saying. And one of those
Yeah.
things is, you're a good father. You go work out at the gym. You support your family. You support your wife. You be a good person. There it is. Be a good person and be a man. That's probably an alpha male trait right there in its simplest definition,
Yeah.
But it's those people that think, being a man, I gotta be this, this whole other monster. That's when it gets really bad.
And in one of your videos, Nikole, I saw where you had said that there's a place for beta males in society, which makes sense. Everyone has their role to play. I'd be curious to know, like, what. I guess I'm asking you a lot of definitions, but kind of what makes you a beta male? Is that any male that follows an alpha, or any male that just kind of doesn't want to step into that leadership role?
So I was actually doing like a little bit more of a deep dive the other day on that, because there's some things, again, looking at the animal kingdom, that talk about like going through the Greek alphabet from alpha to zeta, and you have like
Yeah.
all these different, like, the hierarchy. So it's just like, the roles that people or primates play. But essentially, no matter what you're looking at, the beta males are kind of always like the second place to the alpha. They're the ones who get, if the alpha doesn't want to mate with this woman, with a female, whatever, the betas are going to have second choice of mating. Like the zeta males aren't. They're just kind of on the periphery somewhere.
So I guess my next question, just because you said that, would be, so if a woman is picked by an alpha man, does that make her an alpha woman, or does her personality traits make her an alpha woman? Would you need two leaders in that relationship?
So that's also something I've been like thinking about a lot lately too, because I've been seeing, I guess because I've been talking about this stuff, I've been seeing a lot of this stuff come up on like Instagram and TikTok and all that, whatever. So I was thinking about that a lot this morning. So there are some species that have alpha females and alpha males, and they just have different roles that they deal with. So the alpha females will be more in charge of like making sure that the lactating females who have infants that they're caring for have enough food.
Oh,
So
that
it's
makes
like the
sense.
alpha male is like, hey, like, let's go. I know where all the good food is. And then the alpha female is like, okay, like these are the women who really need more resources. So like, let's go over here and like make sure they have the resources they need. Um, Not every species has an alpha female, so it's a little bit like there's not a whole lot of that reflected in nature, really. I think that like with humans, it gets to be a little bit more complex, because it really
Yeah.
depends on the needs of the alpha male, kind of. So, like, I saw one thing the other day. I don't remember who it was. I want to say it was Andrew Tate, and I don't often disagree with a lot of the things that he says, but he was saying something about how, like, an alpha male needs of like a not alpha female, like somebody who is just happy to stay home and raise the kids and make sure that his house is completely taken care of from head to toe. But then I was like, okay, but then she might be harboring resentment because she doesn't understand his drive, and that like he's not home all the time, or that he has meetings to go to, and she has to be like supremely confident in that when he's not home, he's not
Yeah.
cheating. But then I also think that alpha females tend to need alpha males because anybody other than an alpha male might be intimidated by her drive and her success.
Yeah, and my perspective's a little bit different than his too on that, because I think that a woman who stays home, takes care of the house, takes care of the kids, uh, takes care of the man, if that's what she truly wants to do and she's happy doing, I consider that an alpha woman. And that's my idea of an alpha woman, is someone who's taking care of my kids properly, taking care of the house, taking care of my physical and emotional needs. And if that's what she's wanting to do, it would be the same as a woman pursuing her career. I think that is an alpha woman in her own right.
Yeah. Gilly,
We
we cannot
lost you,
hear
Gillum.
you.
There we go. I think it's kind of subjective, right? To agree with Jones, it's subjective probably to the woman. I think if you're highly
Yeah.
motivated and whatever you want to do, I think that would make you kind of alpha. Whether that means that you want to have a crew, you could be the male out staying at home. Because I was thinking when you were talking about the animals, lions, right? Lions are kind of weird when the fact that they have male lions that fight and attack each other, right, for dominance. But then you have the female lions who do all the hunting. They go out and do most of the hunting, and they're the breadwinner. Technically, the male lion just chills, and the women lions are out there getting dinner. So I
Yeah.
mean, they're putting in the work too. So I don't know. I think it's very subjective, but I think it's like when you're not motivated. And
Right.
real quick, I just wanted to, just in case someone in the audience was interested, I just wanted to share this one. Can you guys see my screen right there? So this is from the
There we go.
National Institute of Health, and it just said testosterone pretty much has been declined average 20% since 1999 to 2016.
That's a big
Wow.
percentage too, 20%.
Yeah.
And so I'll just stop sharing my screen there. But just and that's probably a big why we see some of these problems if males have low testosterone. And then now everyone's Facebook ads are gonna pop up. Are you low in testosterone? So you're welcome,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Poor Nikole is gonna get these ads. She's like, I'm not even a male.
A bunch of blue pill ads.
I already get like a lot of stuff for like hormone replacement therapy because it's also becoming more popular for like my age group, even in females, to get hormone replacement therapy like as you're approaching older age, menopause, all that good stuff. So I just feel like they don't really look at it, I think, in when you're younger, but then as you're older, even for men, like as you're getting older and now you're like, hey, things are slowing down, things are changing, then they're starting to look at like, oh, like let's boost this a little bit. Whereas if they're looking at it when you're younger, that might actually change a little bit of the perspective of like masculinity, because not everybody's going to be this like borderline depressed, unmotivated type of person. Not like that everybody,
I feel like you're calling out a large group of people right now.
But I mean, like that's what low testosterone does, though. Like it can lead to like a lot of depression. It's demotivating. Like your body responds differently to different things. If you can even get up the energy to like go work out and do stuff. So like this is kind of all encompassing, right? So like we're looking at that, like that makes a lot of sense. Why we have this generation, this younger generation coming up that's just kind of like people who go work out are scary and intimidating because like you have a body type or you're more motivated or whatever because your testosterone levels aren't in the pooper.
And I think it's so easy in a society to be unmotivated. Like if you have that I'll just be honest, I'll be real. If something bad happens to your life, it almost feels like society encourages you to feel sorry for yourself. It's really easy to take the path of getting down and feeling sorry. And I'm saying this this is self-critiquing because I was there right there one time. I was, walling in my own, self-pity at a point. And it comes with the person has to make that change and do that with themselves. But it's so easy. It's so easy to just start, you can drink, you can just chill and play video games or watch Netflix constantly. It's so easy because there's so many easy avenues that prevent you from like really getting down and rolling up your sleeves and taking care of what needs. It's a lot tougher, I think. There's a lot of facets to being successful in this.
Yeah.
I watched an interesting article speaking of the like decline of testosterone you were talking about, where they were saying in Japan, due to the boost in like sex toys and pornography and things like that, guys are just staying home and would rather just deal with like whatever their toys and virtual reality and all this stuff are. And it says in the last year, the population has decreased 511,000. And it has done that every year at an increasing rate to the point where Japanese officials are like panicking because the death rate is way higher than the birth rate in Japan right now because men just they're not attracted to women. They don't want to leave the house. Their testosterone levels are decreasing rapidly because they're staying at home. They're not doing anything, and they can get that satisfaction just at home. And it's a really interesting thing to look into.
No, to piggyback on that, there's several countries that seriously want males to come to their country. Don't I think it's Iceland. I'm not 100% sure, so don't hold me to this.
Iceland
But
probably wants anybody.
I think Iceland is asking for males to come there. They will pay males to like immigrant there because there's women that want males, and there's so little, I guess, and just with everything going on, it's there's way more females than males, and yeah, so it must be tough to be a woman in Iceland.
Yeah,
It'd
be very
it's,
cold.
yeah.
Yeah. Like something that comes to mind too, like just thinking about the decline of testosterone, like, so I know women, I don't remember the name of it. There's like a technical term for like when like our like menstrual cycle sinks when we're around each other because like
Oh
we're
yeah,
picking up each other's pheromones and things like that. So I kind of wonder, like, with the increase of use of technology and therefore also the increase of isolation, if that's part of the reason why male testosterone levels are plummeting, because you're sitting at home playing Call of Duty with a bunch of your bros, but like you're not in the same room as them. So you're
yeah.
not like having that interchange of like feedback and pheromones and stuff.
I could see that. Uh, I actually listened to an episode of Joe Rogan where Bert Kreischer and a couple other comedians were on. And I don't know if you're familiar with Bert Kreischer. He's the guy without a shirt that anyways, he was on there and he was saying that he had recently went to a sporting event where they took a bunch of high athlete dudes, comedians, like just high up there guys, and put them all in this big like beer pong competition. But he said just the atmosphere. It had been so long since he had been around just a bunch of dudes in one room. He said just leaving there, he got back in the gym. He quit drinking. He started getting back into sports. He lost like 30 pounds. Just being in a room full of testosterone dudes, like messing with him, like getting him hyped up for stuff. And it changed his whole outlook on everything he had been doing over the past few months.
It's balance, you know. I keep coming back. Everything is, you know, moderation and balance of stuff. And I think one of the things that we miss, like if we get in relationships and we have families, we don't have enough guy time. And I'll just say, like, guy time, just there's just something about it. You go hang out with your boys, whatever you're doing, whether it's watching sports or playing games or just talking. There's just something about the camaraderie. It's not just military, just guys getting together. It's something that, you know, you should take the time to do, I think, as a male, a little bit, maybe 1 to 2 times a month, or at least, you know, over a couple months, do it a couple times, because I don't know, there's just something about it. It almost recharges you. Like I had a buddy, he needed to get away from the you know, the ball and chain for a few days. And so I hung out with him for a bit, and it just, I don't know, it rejuvenated me, recharged me, you know what I'm saying? And it's just something that you got to have time for that. And I'm sure, like, I don't want to speak for girls, but they probably feel maybe the same thing with girl time, you know? There's
Oh,
just,
Yeah.
there's probably something with that. I
Yeah.
think it's healthy in a way. It's healthy you get in the same room, plus you can talk, and there's
It
just something
absolutely
special
is.
about it.
I think there's a little bit more, at least what I've seen and experienced, I feel like there's a little bit more like general, like accepting. All right, that wasn't English. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more generally accepted. There you go. For women to need and want girl time with their friends than it is for men. Like, I feel like, at least from, again, like my experiences, what I've seen, heard with other people, is that like, it's like, well, like, why does he need to go out with the boys? Like, he has enough at home right here, or, you know, like, whatever. And it's like, well, that's not the point. I mean, that might be the point for some, you know, like if boys night out is going to a strip club and everybody's married, that's probably not going to be the most healthy thing, right? Like,
No,
you're
it's
probably
not.
not going
right.
to get like the seal of approval to like keep on going out with the boys. But like, if it's literally just like to get together with the guys and like be able to connect with other men, like I think that there's so much good that can come of that. but it's definitely, I mean, it's kind of like under everything else that falls under like men's mental health. Like people just don't want to acknowledge that no matter who you are, whether you're the zeta male or you're the alpha male, like you still need to take care of your mental health. And that's part of it, because we're social creatures. We need to connect.
And I kind of want to piggyback off what you said a little bit, because there is I want to be careful too, but I think there is a kind of a little stigma. Like, I know friends for a fact, those girls go out with their girlfriends, and that's fine. But if he wants to go out with his boys, it's a problem. It always seems like. And I don't think we've given really an issue. It's not like she's like, well, the last 6 times you all went to, the strip club. No, it's never happened like that. So I think, that's kind of concerning, because I feel like I've seen it. Like, guy goes out and then all the girls tell the girlfriends like, oh, what are they doing, kind of thing. But I feel like that's kind of unfair, because you're telling me that girls can't go out and be up to not so good things too as a group, but when girls go out, it's all sunshine and fairies. It goes both ways. Guys can go out and have a good time and be responsible. They can also be horrible. They can go out and do awful things. So
I think it kind of depends on your group of friends too.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I've got some friends that if I told my wife like, hey, we're going out, she'd probably be like, no. Whereas there's other friends, if I was like, oh, hey, me and such are going out, she'd be like, okay, who cares? Like it depends, because I got some friends that are savages, and I mean, I know the kind of situations they get in on the daily, so I would be sketchy too about, going out with them. But there's also dudes that she knows we just go axe throwing and have a couple beers, and that'd be the night.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of harkens back to this idea of like an alpha mentality, I guess, like having that like respect, like, yes, like probably you have a good handful of bros from back in the day who, predate your wife and your kids, but it's not, you can't like bros before hose it if you're married. Like she no longer qualifies. But like, so there might be those ties that kind of tie you still to that group, but then also having the emotional maturity and the discernment to say like, hey, you know what, like I can't leave these guys in charge of deciding what we do, right? So like maybe if we have to hang out with those guys, like maybe they're coming over here, or we're gonna hang out in the garage, or like we're gonna go to some place like axe throwing or laser tag where like there's less stuff for them to get into.
Let's say distractions. Let's say distractions. Less distractions.
Less distractions. Yes. And I think that's a big part of it as well, is like having, but also that goes along with having that trust with the people that you're leading, including the people that you live with in your household.
Yeah, it's trust, dude. Too. I think that's kind of a red flag, though. If you communicate and be honest of where you're going and what you're doing with your friends, and your significant other still maybe has a problem with it, I think that's a red flag, like a little bit. Especially if you have not shown a pattern of bad behavior, that could be a potential. Like that's like, okay, you need that,
That's what it comes down to. If you've slipped up a couple times, yeah, I get it. Like it would be hard to put some trust on. That's the thing, is trust. You have to earn that trust and keep it. And like you said, as an alpha male, doing the right thing, taking care of your family, they should have no problems trusting you. Whereas if slip up a few times, they're obviously going to be like, fool me once, shame on me.
Right.
But I don't know. There's some weirdisms. Sometimes there's some girls that are just really tough on men. I'll give you an example without dropping any names. There's guys that are completely toxic and do this, and then I fell downstairs one time, and I was the worst person in the world falling down these stairs. I was drinking. This was a couple years ago, and it turns out that these stairs were really slippery, and I wasn't the only person that fell down these stairs. In fact, that person had fallen down their own stairs, and I got brutalized for falling down the stairs. I was like, and then I found that out, and I'm like, what? You all falling down the stairs too? You were mad at me?
I kind of feel
Sorry.
like, is like the stairs a metaphor, or was there actual stairs?
No, there were stairs.
Okay.
It just hit me in the head, and I have to get this out. I have to talk it out. The world needs to know this story.
I mean, that also kind of goes into the idea of like this like toxic femininity too, right? Like men aren't the only ones who get to be called toxic. There are plenty of toxic women, and like falling under like is like, oh, like I'm just trying to like be a feminine female, right? Like, well, men who are just trying to be, or not trying, right? Like men who are just masculine men without all like the assholeness, like you feel like you can't be who you truly are because other people are going to label you as toxic.
Yeah.
And kind of rightly so to a degree, because like, a couple of bad apples tend to ruin the bunch, unfortunately, in society today. And the same thing goes the other way. Like, I feel like because of this rise of feminism, the finger's always pointing at men as being the problem. And there's always three fingers pointing back when you're pointing at somebody, right? And like,
Yeah.
like we don't really acknowledge the fact that like femininity.
Femininity?
I was actually thinking of that word in my head, and I wanted to say it, and I was like, I don't want to say it.
I don't know, man.
I had a question though with you, and this isn't like a trick question because I'm thinking in my head, but to both of y'all, do you think there are, like, let's say healthy feminists and then there's also toxic feminists? Like, is feminism movement as a whole toxic, or is it healthy, or is it just a little bit of both? What do you all think of that?
It kind of depends on your definition of feminism. I consider myself a feminist because I think that women should have the right to work and vote and all that good
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
and
yeah,
should be able to do whatever it is they want to do to the best of their ability. I have no problems with
100%.
any of that. And I don't think that they should stay at home and take care of the house and only be, a stay at home mom. That's what I personally wanted, and it's what I got. But I also picked a woman who that's what she wanted to do. I don't see her as different than a woman who wanted to pursue her career. So I think it kind of depends on your definition of a feminist.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree with you. But there's kind of here. I keep quoting comedians again, and this comedian I'm going to quote is Bill Burr, and I know he's controversial, but his Red Rock show, you should watch it. Stand up. It's pretty good. He can be a savage and rude and disrespectful at times, but his he hits the point sometimes. And he said those feminists are always yelling at me to watch female sports, and I won't butcher his joke, but essentially the thing is the money goes to what the advertising is, and that's what pays a sport and athlete. So he's like, so if you want female athletes to pay more, you need to watch it. You need to watch it instead of watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians. That's why they're making all that money. So he's like, it's not my responsibility to make the WNBA players make more money. If you would watch it, they would make more. And then he goes out and he's like, all right, everyone, all the girls in the crowd, name your top 5 WNBA teams right now. Anybody? Who's your favorite player? No, nobody knows. And that's not a diss on the WNBA, but you can't yell at saying that they're not getting paid enough, but you're not watching them. If you watch them, then they would get paid more because there'd be advertisers that would put money in there. I just think I think that's a definition of like, yeah, the toxic feminism right there. Just saying that. But at the same time, I think there are some good feminism. There's what a woman should make, what she's worth, 100%. She can do whatever job that she's capable of do, 100%. So it's both sides.
I mean, obviously I'm a woman, right? And like, I appreciate the fact that I can vote and I can have my own job and all of these things, and that's awesome. I think one thing that like the feminism movement forgot to mention is that like we find ourselves in a place now where if you want to have a career and a family in America, you're basically screwed. Like you cannot. I'm not saying you can't, completely can't, but it is really insanely difficult to be fully present for your family and to raise your children yourself instead of daycare, whatever,
Right.
and also have a fulfilling career. Like you can't
Childcare
do
is so
that
expensive.
because America didn't keep up with other countries with giving like maternity leave. And yeah, you could take maternity leave for like the 6 or 8 weeks that it takes your physical body to technically be healed, but then after that, like, you have to go to work, and while you're out, you only get 60% of your pay. So there's like all of these structural things in society that, like, I feel like feminism just
Oh,
forgot about because they were
oh yeah.
so concerned with being like men that we forgot that we're not men, and that we're not like men, and that's also our strength. I also feel like the toxicity in feminism now is that it seems that it's all about bashing men and
Yeah.
not anymore about advancing women. It's, I'm going to step on men in order to get myself ahead, rather than saying, like, hey, we're two sides of the same coin and we can't do life without each other. I've been seeing all these videos lately where, like, an interviewer, like, stops women on the street wherever, and he's like, oh, do we need men? And all these women are like, no.
I've seen those.
Right. And then, like, I saw one that was like talking about like the percentage of males in certain jobs, like, military, fire, police, all that. And I saw another video that stitched that video that was like, this is ridiculous because of this, and this. But, like, ultimately, women aren't being drawn towards, we're allowed to have those careers, right? But we're not being drawn towards those careers. Those are predominantly male careers for a reason. And so even if you're just looking at, like, do we need men in society? The answer is obviously yes. Do you need men to procreate? The answer is yes. Like, at some point, like, if all men died, at some point the sperm banks would run out of sperm, and
Yeah.
humanity would die, right? So it's like, I think it's just asinine that, like, there's this, like, because females were, like, oppressed, then now all of a sudden we have to be the oppressors
Yeah.
and make sure that men don't have a voice. I think that's so stupid.
I think that's what it came down to, was it went from wanting equality to wanting superiority. And it's no longer about wanting to be equal. It's more so, hey, you kept us on the bottom for so long, we deserve to be on top, and kind of show you what it's like to not vote. And not that we're losing our voting rights, but I think that's kind of the perspective a lot of
Yeah.
these feminists are taking.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they
Like, we
say.
don't.
Humans operate in what is it? What's the word? Degrees of response. It's always extreme. We can't
Yeah.
ever just. I'll give you an example of my dad, and I'm sorry, Dad. Um, my dad. We're driving down. I was a kid, right? And I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think the window was down, and I put my hand out the window, and I think I hit a tree branch with my hand, and I slightly hurt myself, right? And my dad's like, "Wow, we could never have the windows down ever again." To prevent that. And it was just like, no, just be smart. But that's like, I see that happen. That one example, I see that happen time and time again. We do an extreme degree of response. Yeah, males were dominant so more. Instead of going back, well, let's actually have equality. Well, now we're going to the extreme opposite side. And I see that constantly and stuff. And it's
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous. We just teeter totter. We can't ever not teeter totter. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like the pendulum swings, right? It just kind of just keeps going back and forth, and for maybe a brief millisecond, we might have some sort of equal footing. But I feel like these days, in part also because, like, society again isn't really set up for women to maintain their femininity if they want to have a career, and, like, be in touch with, like, motherhood and all that stuff. That, like, we're trying to fill the role of male and female in our own lives and in our own place. That, like, any alpha male or masculine male is going to become a threat to us as well. And then that kind of also gives rise to people or men who want to, like, kind of try to suppress the masculinity, because ultimately, like, the drive is still the animal drive to, like, be able to mate,
Yeah.
right? Like, whatever. So, like, if women aren't choosing men who are masculine, then all these, like, betas and below are like, yeah, like, this is my moment,
Yeah.
Well, I love that you bring up the mating thing again, because I want to bring back, like, I feel like there's a simple um, DNA biological function that's kind of imprinted in us, and it's in other species as well, and it's the I think I don't want to quote someone wrong, but I think I heard someone say like one of the greatest things you can do is leave a legacy behind, your ancestors before you. And it's something that every species does. You carry your species forward. But if you're not able to produce, you don't have a kid, you don't have anything to carry on your name ever again. And that's a really if you want to really break it down, and I'm just going to go like a hypothetical, but we have to carry on our species. We have to continue to grow. And someday we might want to, colonialize. There, I kind of think I said it. Other worlds, and you need manpower to do it. And well, I'll just say I believe in God. But if you don't, and you think there's a bunch of wild alien species ready to invade, well, we need people. We need manpower to fight those aliens. Everyone's watched, all the sci-fi videos, and we got to colonize other worlds. So, and that takes males. We got to have males and females working together and continue the species forward.
Yeah.
Typical white man wanting to colonize.
Oh my dude.
It kind of reminds me of like another video I saw the other day where like a bunch of women were being interviewed and like they were being asked like would you like die for your kid, or like would you kill for your kid?
I saw that.
And everybody was like no, and I'm like, okay, well, so that like you're just gonna let your kids get like taken or murdered, and like you're not gonna like try to step up and like do something about that? Like that, like we need men for that at the very least. Like if you're not gonna do it for the spawn that you birth, that you grew this child in your body.
I think that video was a lot of young ignorant people that didn't have kids, because I watched that, and the answers, I hope and pray they weren't moms, because that video was very disturbing to watch. How many women were like, oh no, they could hurt my kids, I'm not going to hurt someone. And I was just like, what the crap kind of video is this?
I already have a plan that if anything happened to our son, we know exactly who would be going to prison.
Yeah, and then same growing up. My mom would have went to prison in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm sorry, but like if I saw a video now of like my mom 30 years ago saying that she wouldn't kill for me or go to prison for me, I'd be like, what? Like, are you even my mother?
Yeah, that's wild.
What the hell? Like, you're supposed to. But I mean, I think that ultimately what's going to happen is like this kind of like Darwinism type of thing where either A, the pendulum's going to swing in the other direction, and then we're going to have
a lot of alpha males
that brings forward the alphas, who then garner the respect because they're going to be the ones to save the day. Or B, we're going to go through this like strange like recession almost, where like we're just almost breeding out alphas until we need them again, and then those like, I don't know, recessive alpha genes are going to be like, this is our moment.
I feel like that's the trajectory we're on. I feel like we're going in the direction where betas are going to be on top for a while, and then something catastrophic is going to have to happen. That's going to, whether it be like a World War III, or maybe like you said, a recession, or maybe it's just like women are sick of beta males. Like they may just get fed up. Something's going to happen to turn the tides. It always does. You're not going to have a civilization that's just based off of beta males. It's just not going to happen. But I think we're on that slump where alpha males are getting kind of pushed to the side or the curb and belittled, and the betas are kind of taking their turn on top.
I think, it's all because it's a conspiracy. The betas realize the only way they can beat the alpha males is just create this horrible stigma and bombard your Instagram reels with horrible toxin masculinity. That way they have better chance with women. That's
well, you do see beta males doing that, go into these feminist rallies and bashing men, or seeing muscular men and calling them like, saying they're overcompensating or belittling them. And you see that a lot nowadays, where beta males are like, this is my chance to, get one in.
Well, I mean, this is so funny. Every time, if you get a group of guys and they're all single, and then a couple girls all of a sudden comes into the mix, all of a sudden everything changes. Everyone starts turning on each other, They're like,
yeah,
he caught something 3 years ago, just so you know, He doesn't wear deodorant. Twice. How's your divorce going, bro? Oh, dude, I'm sorry. It's
Like they
nuts.
don't know the
We turn on
reply.
each other.
Dude,
It's
so
almost. I almost need a. I almost could do that. I just need a webcam or like a body cam just to show it, just to see the the group crumble.
yeah. In my like deep dive the other day about like just like trying to like look up like really like the definition of like beta and like, below. I don't know how I ended up on like some Reddit or something, and they were talking about incels. They were talking about incels as like involuntarily celibate men, and like them talking like against alphas. And I really just want to be like, if you're involuntarily celibate, it means that nobody's picking you, and so you don't have a voice in this because you're like jealousy and insecurity is just what's underneath that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And then I was like, why would they adopt the word incel? Because that always, to me, means like
That's
terrorists. Like,
that's like
I don't know.
that's the ultimate just defeat where you just start self-claiming you're an incel.
It just makes no sense to me.
You feel like
But I
you're
think because we're
embracing it.
also in this day and age where like everybody needs a label to make themselves feel special, and
Yeah, it's
like
true.
we don't actually see that. Like I said earlier, with like alpha males, like there will probably very, very rarely will you see an alpha male say, I'm an alpha male, right? It might come
Yeah.
up in conversation, like, you might like identify, like I've certainly like identified myself as like alpha female before, but not like I'm gonna like throw this around, like you have to defer to me because like, I'm alpha. But like people
Hey,
who
excuse
need the
me. Just to
labels,
introduce myself, 2 times college graduate, alpha male.
like
Just to get into the talk.
you just don't see it. Like I feel like people who need labels like that are like just
I just picture Nikole with all her friends. Listen up, bitches. This is how it's gonna go down. They're
It's
all
a
like, "We get
doctor.
it. You're an alpha. We get it. Please stop."
Or on this light, I always think of the Big Lebowski line where they walk inside that building. They're like, "Who is this gentleman?" He's like, "Who am I? I'm a fucking veteran." That is the best. Just to tie it back to toxic masculinity and military, right there. That's the.
There are a lot in the military
Oh yeah.
because the military lies to men and tell us they're really bad about telling every single man that they're the best on earth, especially the infantry. Kind of breeds it by telling everyone no one's better than you. You're the strongest. You're the best. You're a killer, and they're not all the best. So there's a lot of false alphas. So that just breeds toxic masculinity when someone's a beta and has been given authority or feels like they have been given it.
yeah.
The military's a
Or
yeah.
when somebody's like lower than a beta and has to try to like fit in essentially with like the idea of like masculinity, and then you get a lot of that posturing crap all the
Yeah.
time, to the point where like they almost like believe their own lies and like carry it with them outside of that environment, and then you get what you get.
Yeah. Then reality hits.
Yeah.
But then that does kind of circle back to a little bit of there is a stigma for males too. I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but like, there's still males. It's just bad if we show feelings too at the same time. It's a really touchy subject. But
Yeah.
I feel like the one circle where I think guys can share feelings is like their inner circle of guy friends. That's when I've seen it. It's one time
If
that
you
they
have the
can,
right
if
friends.
you got the right friends, that's where it can come out a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I want to touch one thing real quick on toxic masculinity. I think one thing that is lacking is people have sometimes observed guys and they observe guys talking crap to each other, talking shit to each other. And I think I've always found that talking shit when you're friends is one of the biggest compliments because that's your buddy calling out your weakness and now you know what to get better at. I think it's one of the best things too. So I've always been that type of guy, and it gets me in trouble sometimes because I like this guy's my friend, so I'm gonna talk shit to him, and then he gets butthurt, And I'm like, oh, I think it's something that's lacking. I think it's really fun when you get that camaraderie, you can talk, your buddy's weakness and you can call him out, and it's funny. That's just me, but
that's kind of how I've built my friend groups. Is it takes a very special breed to hang out with me. So a lot of them, I mean, if you get offended, you're just not going to make the cut. That's just kind of how my group of friends has been built. Because I'm the same way. If someone's doing something stupid, I'll tell them. Or if somebody's, or even if they're not, I like to fuck with people. So especially my friends. So if they can't take a joke, they're just not going to make the cut.
So I think what me and Jones are trying to say is guys are too sensitive.
Yeah, a lot are.
A lot of them are. I shouldn't generalize. There's some that are just too sensitive. And just take a joke,
Like my poor little therapist brain is like melting right now.
She just exploded.
I mean, like you can point things out to somebody in love, or you can make it a point to try to humiliate them for it, right? Like,
true. It's how you say it.
Fair.
Yeah, exactly. Like thinking of it in a way of like when you were at your lowest and were making poor decisions on your behalf, would it have been more helpful for somebody to mock you and insult you in front of a group of people, or would it have been more helpful for even in front of the group of people for them to be like, yo, like I'm a little concerned here. Like this is what I'm seeing going on, or taking, one-on-one.
It's subjective, Sorry, I made it sound like it was like this big drill thing, but it's very subjective to how you do it. Tone is everything. Tone, your body language, where you're doing it at. If your buddies are meeting you're at a in a table and it's just you all and you're all teasing around with each other, that's probably the ideal setting. But obviously, circling back to what I said earlier, all of a sudden a girl walks in and he's like, he's been divorced twice. That's not what I'm talking about. The perfect example is a diss on me. A buddy coming over and like, dude, your apartment's a mess. You need to clean up. What's wrong with you? And I'm like, dude, you're right. I know. But he's saying it as a joke because he's calling me out, but also, yeah, he's right. I need to straighten up my apartment. I didn't take butt hurt. I didn't take, it wasn't humiliating me. But I also know that at the same time, a really close friend's not going to throw salt on your lowest wound, too. It's,
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think I've ever kicked anyone while they were down.
Like that.
Yeah.
It's like right after the divorce.
Yeah. No.
He just got divorced yesterday. Well, that might be funny, depending on the guy. Divorce party.
It's a thing now. Yeah. It depends. It definitely does. And I think that's also part of going back to the concept of alpha and whatever is being in tune with your troop or tribe, in that like you kind of like know how to communicate with people in an appropriate way.
So I guess big picture though, Nikole, like summarize, what do you think we can do to improve ourselves, I guess, to be better alpha males without being toxic? Summarize it for us.
Man. I mean, I would say honestly, like just in general, for like guys in general, is to like work on your shit. Like own it, take responsibility for it. Because like, yes, like everybody has their stuff that they need to work on. But like if you're really not working on your stuff and the only thing that you do is like run away from it or deny it, then you're not going to be able to show up for people in the way that you need to as an alpha. Like you can be relied on for some things, yes, but you might not be able to be relied on for everything. Your boys might be like, yo, if stuff goes down, we get into a bar fight, I definitely want you there. But your wife or girlfriend or whoever at home might be like, I can't talk to you because you're not here. Like you're not fully present, because in your mind you have to be like running away from whatever's going on, or it's hard for you to sit down and be quiet, or like whatever it is. So I think just like a lot of introspection and self-improvement, and not what's the word I'm looking for here? Like maybe like not a lot of like comparison, because I feel like that is it's putting that like locus of control external to yourself, right? Like when you start looking at other people, what are they doing? How am I going to be offended by what they're doing? Like it just puts it into everybody else's court. And really, I think ultimately it comes down to an alpha having an internal locus of control where like what happens externally doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I saw this great video. I don't even know who the hell was speaking. It was probably like 3:00 in the morning when I was like just randomly scrolling. But it was this guy who was pointing out like that level of confidence, right? Like if I'm like, hey, Gilly, like your blue hair is just like ridiculous. Like you look like an idiot. You're going to sit there like, what are you talking about? I don't have blue hair, right? And you're not going to come at me and being like, well, F you, like this is what you like, start tearing me apart for my appearance or like whatever. You're just going to be like, I don't have blue hair. I'm not going to like, that doesn't ruin my day. I'm just going to like move on with my life, like, okay,
Yeah.
like it's like weird. And I think that like that has a lot to do with being able to garner that respect and develop that trust and have effective communication when you're not sitting there seeing offense and everything outside.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like we could go on for hours on this discussion. This has been very lively. It's a very interesting. It might be one of my favorite podcasts so far.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
But hey,
guys
I
for
do want to
having me
be
back
sensitive of
on.
everyone's time, though.
Super.
Yeah, I gotta go shovel snow, so
Yeah,
that'll be
we
fun.
do have, and I think it's time to pop smoke. But before we go, Nikole, do you want to plug? I know you have an Instagram channel now that you talk about some of these alpha issues. You want to plug that for yourself real quick?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook. Like, find me everywhere. It's Everyday Mental Health and Fitness. It's very long, but it's all one word. And I have like a bunch of videos touching on a lot of different mental health stuff, including a whole series on alpha stuff.
And you are a licensed therapist in several states. Do you want to list them or?
In Connecticut and North Carolina. I'm not taking any clients right now.
Okay.
But I am licensed.
Yep. Nice.
Well, we appreciate your time, Nikole. Enjoyed having you on and would love to have you on again. I'm sure we could think of a million different topics we could have a therapist on for.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
It'd be cool to have a really big, we should have a roundtable episode where we have like several of us males and Nikole can break us all down.
She can tell us how fucked up we are in the head.
Crumble us.
That'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for having me on, and I do look forward to any other ones that we do in the future.